Happy Thursday. It is March 14th, 2024. It's the morning as I record this. And I've got pulled up on the screen. I actually shared this on my way back. I took a couple day or 2 night retreat, almost 48 hours, some time away. I hadn't done anything like this in years and I really needed it. So it was very rejuvenating. Nice to just get away off grid and really just kind of spend some time in silence for the most part and with God and really, really nice and necessary. And so as I came back, I sort of joked and tweeted, beware shorts. I'm re-energized coming back from this. But I actually want to jump over now. Let's talk about a couple different things. First of all, the NIO phone received an award, and what kind of stood out to me, NIO has this on their site. I'll link this and the other things I share, the other tabs that we'll cover in the description, so you can just click down below and check them out for yourselves if you'd like. But here's kind of what in my mind I've been watching the German market sort of passively. It's still really early, but to see how NIO would be received as a brand, the vehicles and there are other products, services, things like the power swap stations. In this case, this is coming out. This design award came out of Munich, Germany, and it was, commented by the panel as a product. The NIO phone, not only a mobile phone, but also a link between users and NIO vehicles. And so, this positive sort of acknowledgement, from within the German market, this is the kind of thing I'd like to see. And my thinking is the German market's important outside of China because BMW, Mercedes, and Audi are based in Germany. They've done really well in the Chinese market. And so I think for not just the Chinese consumer to recognize, accept, and adopt the NIO brand in China, but if we get an acknowledgement from German users, whether it's the phone, the other products, the power swap, and all those things, I think those are going to be indicators for us that will maybe tell a little of the future story in Europe and maybe the global journey, kind of beyond. And so, the Chinese market, has been the most important in my mind for NIO as the first ever premium brand from China. I think that's a really nice, it offers a nice opportunity for NIO to really solidify itself there. But their big competitors, especially on the car side in the premium space, are those German brands. And so Germany is also a market and important, in my mind, at least, to keep an eye on. So I wanted to share that. And we'll talk about the phone in just a second again, because there's something kind of cool going on. This is the insurance data for the week of March 4th through the 10th. About 2,000 vehicles is what it looks like for NIO. And some may be really frustrated with this. I was obviously gone. So normally I do a weekly video on this, but I was gone those couple of days. And so I wanted to just mention this. And then here's my thought. I think this is really interesting, and it's related to maybe the March numbers. Shout out to Will from China Driven. If you haven't followed Will on Twitter, I'll do a thank you to him in this tweet. And then he also has a YouTube channel. And Will, if you watch this, I'm sorry, it took me a long time, but I finally got over and I watched your videos where you travel across China. And now Will is a NIO ET7 owner, but in this case, they took an ES8 and an ET5 touring, and they went cross country and did a bunch of videos. And so it was cool to see, as an outsider, I'm not in China. I get to see someone who owns a NIO and get his take on things. And he's very familiar with a lot of the brands in China. So thank you, Will. I wanted to shout out. But in this case, this post that I liked is because I agree with Will concept-wise. NIO is really smart. They don't do discounts for the cars. So the premium brand, the NIO brand, doesn't get necessarily discounts, but what they'll do is creatively find ways to add value or offer value. And so here's one of the recent things with that, back to that 2,000 number in this, recent week in March reported. If people are frustrated with that on the insurance registration side of things, I thought this was interesting. NIO gives free NIO phones to customers buying the 2024 models. Now, according to the article, NIO has recently started giving away free NIO phones to customers buying the 2024 models, but the entitlement is currently available only for March, so only in this month of March. So what happens with numbers? Does this have an impact? This is the kind of thing that NIO creatively can do a lot of things by having so many different products and still establishing their brand. Let's talk stock price. And of course, we can't really talk stock price without doing a recap, a review, a check on the fails to deliver data. Fails to deliver, for those who don't know, could be made up fake shares that aren't shares at all, but they could be used to suppress stock price. And so what are we looking at? The yellow line represents the NIO stock price. And this is more recent stock price. This is not the whole history of NIO stock, but the yellow line represents the NIO stock price. If you'll notice, I sure think it's obvious that the stock price seems to be higher and stay higher when the white lines are lower. The white lines are the fails to deliver. Now, fails to deliver can be fake shares that aren't even real shares, but they can be used to suppress stock price. If you look back at the history of NIO stock with what probably was a short squeeze that happened in 2020 and into early 2021, the NIO stock price ran from about, at one point, it was $3.18. And in less than 7 months, it ran to $54. During that and a little more extended time frame where it ran even more and went higher, what you saw was sort of what, but even a bigger discrepancy here, where there were a ton of these white lines. There was all this fails to deliver stuff going on, and the stock price was down until we saw a drop off, not unlike this little, area here where the fails to deliver maybe dropped off to a more normal number, and we saw the stock price go. So, as far as what I'm thinking and watching in sort of an ongoing fashion and really moving forward, it's simple. I watch basically two things. I watch the daily, and this is only if I'm wondering what's going on with the short-term time frame stuff, is I'm watching the daily trade volume, because during that time when the NIO stock price probably ran and had a short squeeze, we saw, I think it was on average at least 80, maybe 100 million shares traded daily. If there are shorts who have been and continue to control stock price, which is as it appears to me, for the last few years, they have really, it looks like they have maintained stock price control. But we haven't had any consistent big trade volume like we did back in that time frame. And so my thought is, especially if fails to deliver are active and keeping the stock price down, it may take big trade volume for an extended period of time and with an obvious uptrend for us to see a short squeeze. Now, to be clear, I'm not in this play for a short squeeze. And it took me a while to even realize that that's probably what we saw before with this stock. But back to, my thinking, it's at the bottom of the screen. I've got my first major growth phases for NIO. We're still in the first one. The brand is still becoming known even within China. So it is still very early. Profitability marks sort of the second major growth phase. I think we could see that in 2024. I also think it's kind of up to management and NIO execs like William Lee. And I wouldn't mind if he decides to wait longer to show profitability, to show bigger profits when they do decide to show it. I'm okay with that, but that's my personal view, which has always been long-term and bigger picture sort of overview. I would like the company to establish itself and really become profitable and just a powerhouse. Back when I first came up with these growth phases, I didn't even know that NIO was going to have sub brands. I didn't know that the energy play for NIO was going to be so substantial. I don't think anyone realizes how big this company can be yet. And so that's, again, a nod to, in my mind, it's still really early. And as such, especially on days where there could be selling pressure, not even related to NIO directly, but for example, if the market's selling off overall, you could get automatic sells that come from big institutions that maybe are invested, but then decide to wipe things, or there are just automatic things triggered. I don't know how all their algorithms work. I do know that it sure looks like the shorts have been in control and remain in control. The other thing that we could see, and then again, this is just me talking and sharing kind of my thoughts aloud, is the Citadel is a suspicious short, and I referenced them as such back in the fall of 2021 when NIO stock was trading above $40. And I was just kind of like, hey, heads up, let's see what happens. This suspicious short is getting involved as a short with a position in NIO. And since then, if you look at the history, the stock price history, you kind of see I think, maybe an apparent pattern of correlation between these things, kind of like the fails to deliver and the stock price action. It seems correlated, or at least somewhat related. But the problem is, on the short term stuff, we don't get access to the fails to deliver real time. They're at least 2 weeks delayed. So even if you're the best trader in the world and you have the best, skill set when it comes to technical analysis and breaking things down, you still don't have access to the real time data. You don't know for 2 weeks what's going on in the background with the fails to deliver and things like that. So unless we see big trade volume, I won't be shocked if we remain pinned or the stock price remains negative and that sort of thing. Ultimately, this remains the long-term play, but the curious side of me has me digging into the shorter term stuff because I'm always wanting to learn, continue to learn and study and that sort of thing. So I appreciate having so many great people on this journey with me. It's been a wild one already, but a lot of fun as well. So I'd like to hear from you. Drop it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I'm still catching up on things. Obviously, I was gone, and so it'll take me a little bit more time to get caught up. Thanks. Have a great day. We'll see y'all again very soon.